I found a ticket to London in the old house my husband left. I thought the house we were cleaning out belonged to a stranger. I had no idea it was the place where my entire marriage had been a carefully rehearsed lie. But how could I have known that a single plane ticket, hidden in a dusty drawer, would unravel everything I believed about the man I'd loved for 9 years? If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. My name is Rachel. I'm 34 years old, and until 6 months ago, I believed I was living the kind of life people write romance novels about. I was married to my college sweetheart. I had a career I loved. I thought I knew everything about my husband. I was wrong about all of it. It started on a Saturday morning in March. My husband, Aaron, and I were standing in front of a small brick house on the edge of town, holding a rusty key his late aunt had left him. Aunt Marlene had passed away 3 months earlier, and Aaron had been putting off dealing with her estate. The house had been empty for years, even before she died. She'd moved into assisted living, and nobody had touched the place since. Aaron looked tired that morning. He'd been working long hours at his consulting firm, traveling constantly. I squeezed his hand and said, "We'll get through this together." He gave me a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The house smelled like dust and old wood, and something else I couldn't name. Sadness, maybe, or secrets. We walked through rooms filled with covered furniture and boxes stacked to the ceiling. Aaron said his aunt had been a hoarder in her later years, that nobody in the family wanted to deal with sorting through decades of junk. I told him we'd make it fun. We'd order pizza. We'd play music. We'd take breaks and tell stories about Aunt Marlene. I was always the optimistic one in our marriage, always the one who tried to make hard things easier. We started in the living room. I found old photo albums and yellowed newspaper clippings. Aaron worked in the corner, sorting through boxes of books. We barely spoke for the first hour. It was comfortable silence, the kind married people fall into when they've been together long enough that words aren't always necessary. Then I moved to the bedroom. The furniture was old and heavy, dark wood that smelled like mothballs. I opened the closet and found it mostly empty except for a few wire hangers and a stack of shoeboxes on the top shelf. I pulled them down one by one. Most were filled with old shoes, just like you'd expect, but the last box felt different, lighter. I opened it and found papers inside. Old receipts, birthday cards, a random collection of things that meant something to someone once, but looked like garbage now. And then I saw it, a plane ticket. Not an old one, yellowed and crumbling, a recent one. The paper was still crisp and white. I pulled it out, curious. It was a round-trip ticket to London, Heathrow Airport. The departure date was from 2 years ago, May 15th. The return date was May 22nd. Aaron Mitchell was the name on the ticket. My Aaron Mitchell. I stared at it for a long time. My brain couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. Aaron had never been to London. I would have known. We told each other everything. We shared a calendar. We talked every single day, even when he traveled for work. I walked back into the living room holding the ticket. Aaron was bent over a box, pulling out old magazines. I said his name. He looked up. I held out the ticket and asked him what this was. He froze. Just for a second, but I saw it. His face went blank and then shifted into something I'd never seen before. Confusion, maybe, or calculation. He stood up and took the ticket from my hand. He looked at it for a few seconds, then shrugged and said it must be old. Maybe it belonged to his aunt. Maybe she had a friend named Aaron. I told him it had his full name, his exact name, Aaron James Mitchell, the same name on our marriage certificate. He laughed, but it sounded forced. He said there must be 1,000 Aaron Mitchells in the world. It was a coincidence, but I saw something in his eyes. A flicker of panic, a wall going up. I asked him to look at the date. 2 years ago, May. I reminded him that he'd been traveling for work that month. He'd told me he was in Chicago for a week-long conference. He handed the ticket back to me and said he didn't know what to tell me. He didn't remember going to London. He'd never been to London in his life. It wasn't his ticket. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But something in my chest felt tight. My hands were shaking. I went back to the bedroom and kept digging through the box. And that's when I found the rest of it. Hotel receipts, London hotels, the Savoy, the Hoxton, restaurants I'd never heard of, all dated during that same week in May 2 years ago. And then, at the very bottom of the box, I found photographs. They were printed on regular photo paper, the kind you get from a drugstore kiosk. There were maybe a dozen of them. Pictures of London, Big Ben, the London Eye, cozy pubs with dark wood and warm lighting. And in 3 of the photos, there was a woman. She was blonde, petite, probably in her early 30s. She was laughing in one picture, holding a glass of wine. In another, she was standing in front of the Tower Bridge, Erin's arm around her shoulders. In the last one, they were kissing. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. My knees went weak, and I sat down hard on the dusty bed. I couldn't breathe. I stared at the photo of my husband kissing another woman in a city he swore he'd never been to. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe a minute, maybe 10. Time stopped meaning anything. Then I heard Erin's footsteps. He came into the bedroom and saw me sitting there with the photos spread out on the bed. He stopped in the doorway. We neither of us said anything for several seconds. Then I asked him who she was. My voice didn't even sound like mine. It was cold, detached, like I was asking a stranger for directions. Erin's face went pale. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He said it wasn't what it looked like. I laughed. It came out harsh and bitter. I asked him what it looked like to him, because to me, it looked like my husband had a secret trip to London with another woman 2 years ago, and then lied to my face about it 30 seconds ago. He stepped into the room and tried to sit next to me. I stood up and moved away. I told him not to touch me. He ran his hand through his hair. He looked genuinely distressed, but I couldn't tell if it was because he was caught or because he felt guilty. He said it was a mistake, a stupid, terrible mistake. He met her at a work conference in Boston the year before that. They stayed in touch. She lived in London. When he had to go to Chicago for work, he extended his trip. He flew to London for a week. I asked him if he loved her. My voice cracked on the word love. He said no. He swore he didn't love her. It was just... He paused, trying to find the word. Exciting. Different. A break from real life. I asked him if I was real life, if our marriage was the boring thing he needed a break from. He said that wasn't what he meant. He was stumbling over his words now, trying to explain, but everything he said made it worse. He told me it ended after that trip. He never saw her again. He cut off contact. He came home and realized what he'd almost thrown away. He said he'd been a better husband ever since. He said he'd spent 2 years trying to make it up to me without me even knowing there was anything to make up for. I asked him why the ticket and photos were here, in his dead aunt's house. He hesitated. Then he admitted he'd hidden them here months ago, right after Aunt Marlene went into assisted living. He didn't want to keep them at home where I might find them, but he couldn't bring himself to throw them away. He said he didn't know why. Maybe guilt. Maybe he wanted to punish himself by keeping the evidence of what he'd done. I felt sick, physically sick. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. Erin followed me, trying to help, trying to rub my back, but I shoved him away. I locked the bathroom door and sat on the cold tile floor and cried so hard I thought I might break apart. When I finally came out, Erin was sitting on the floor in the hallway with his head in his hands. He looked up at me with red eyes and said he was sorry. He said it over and over. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you." I told him he didn't get to decide whether he hurt me. He did hurt me. He'd been hurting me for 2 years and I just didn't know it. We left the house that day without finishing the cleaning. Erin drove us home in silence. I stared out the window and felt like I was watching my life from outside my body. Everything looked the same. The same streets, the same trees, the same house we pulled up to. But nothing was the same. The next few days were a blur. I called in sick to work. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I lay in our guest bedroom because I couldn't stand to be in the same bed as Erin. He tried to talk to me multiple times. He tried to explain. He tried to apologize, but I couldn't hear it. Every word he said sounded like a lie now. I kept thinking about the past 2 years. All the times he'd told me he loved me. All the times we'd made plans for the future. All the times we'd been intimate and I'd felt close to him. Had he been thinking about her? Had he been comparing me to her? Had every moment of our marriage since that trip been a performance? I started digging. I went through our bank statements, our credit card bills. I checked his email when he was in the shower. I felt disgusting doing it, like I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. But I needed to know. I needed to know if there was more. And there was. Not another affair, but lies. So many lies. Business trips that lasted a day longer than he'd told me. Expenses that didn't match the cities he claimed to be in. A PayPal account I didn't know about. It wasn't evidence of another woman, but it was evidence that my husband was capable of hiding things from me. Big things. Important things. I called my best friend Morgan. We'd been friends since high school. She knew Aaron almost as long as I had. She'd been my maid of honor at our wedding. When I told her what I'd found, she was silent for a long time. Then she asked me what I needed. Not what I was going to do, just what I needed right now, in this moment. I told her I needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't overreacting, that it was okay to feel like my world had ended. She said I wasn't crazy. She said she was coming over. Morgan showed up 20 minutes later with a bag of takeout I wouldn't eat and a bottle of wine I would. We sat on my couch and I cried on her shoulder for hours. She didn't try to tell me everything would be okay. She didn't try to defend Aaron. She just listened. And when I finally stopped crying, she asked me what I wanted to do. I said I didn't know. I loved him, or I loved who I thought he was. I didn't know if that person even existed. I didn't know if our entire marriage was a lie or just part of it. I didn't know if I could ever trust him again. I didn't know if I wanted to. Morgan said I didn't have to decide anything right now. I could take my time. I could figure out what I needed. She said the only thing I had to do was take care of myself. But I didn't know how to do that. I'd spent 9 years building a life with Aaron. Our finances were tangled together. Our friend groups overlapped. We had a mortgage. We had a 5-year plan. We'd been talking about starting a family. The thought of having children with him now sent my stomach into somersaults again. Aaron begged me to go to couples therapy. He said he'd do anything. He'd answer any question. He'd give me access to everything. His phone, his email, his bank accounts. He said he'd earn back my trust if it took the rest of his life. Part of me wanted to try. Part of me wanted to believe that people make mistakes and marriages can survive them. But a bigger part of me felt dead inside. I looked at him and felt nothing but anger and sadness. I moved out 2 weeks after finding the ticket. I couldn't stay in that house anymore. Every room reminded me of a life I thought I had, but didn't. I moved into Morgan's guest room temporarily while I figured out what to do next. Aaron called me every day. He sent flowers. He sent long emails telling me how much he loved me and how sorry he was. He said he'd told his parents what happened. He said they were disappointed in him. He said everyone in his life was telling him he was an idiot, and he agreed with them. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I was too busy trying to remember how to function like a normal person. I had to force myself to shower, to eat, to go to work. My coworkers noticed something was wrong. My boss pulled me aside and asked if I was okay. I lied and said I was fine, just stressed. She didn't believe me, but she didn't push. At night, I lay in Morgan's guest bed and stared at the ceiling and replayed every moment of my marriage. I tried to figure out when it started going wrong. Was it before London? Had he been unhappy for years? Had I missed signs? Was I a bad wife? Did I push him away somehow? Morgan would hear me through the wall and come in. She'd sit on the edge of the bed and remind me that this wasn't my fault, that Aaron made a choice, that nothing I did or didn't do justified what he'd done. But I couldn't stop blaming myself. I kept thinking about all the times Aaron had traveled for work and I'd encouraged him to go. I'd packed his suitcase. I'd driven him to the airport. I'd texted him every day telling him I missed him and couldn't wait for him to come home. Had he been laughing at me? Had he felt guilty? Had he felt anything at all? One night, about a month after I moved out, Aaron showed up at Morgan's apartment. He rang the doorbell at 9 o'clock. Morgan answered and told him I didn't want to see him. He said he just needed 5 minutes. Please, just 5 minutes. Morgan looked at me. I nodded. I didn't know why. Maybe I thought seeing him would help. Maybe I thought it would give me closure. We sat on the porch. It was a cool evening in April. Aaron looked terrible. He'd lost weight. He had dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. He told me he'd quit his job. He said he couldn't keep working at the place where he'd met her. He said he needed to start over, make changes, prove to me that he was serious about fixing things. I asked him whether he thought quitting the job would make me forgive him. He said no. He said he didn't expect me to forgive him. He just wanted me to know he was trying. He was going to therapy. He was reading books about infidelity and rebuilding trust. He was doing everything he could think of to become the person I deserved. I told him that he should have been that person right from the start. He started crying. I'd only seen Aaron cry once before, at his grandfather's funeral. Seeing him cry now didn't make me feel sympathetic. It made me angry. He didn't get to cry. He didn't get to be the victim. I told him I wanted a divorce. The words came out before I even realized I'd decided, but once I said them, I knew it was true. I couldn't stay married to him. I couldn't spend the rest of my life wondering if he was lying. I couldn't build a family with someone I didn't trust. Aaron begged me to reconsider. He said he'd do anything. He said we'd invested 9 years in each other. He said marriage was supposed to be for better or worse. I told him this was definitely worse, and I told him I was done. He sat there for a long time, crying silently. Then he nodded. He said if that's what I wanted, he wouldn't fight me. He'd sign whatever papers I needed him to sign. He'd make it as easy as possible. I went back inside and closed the door. I watched through the window as he walked to his car. He sat in the driver's seat for a few minutes before driving away. Morgan hugged me and asked if I was okay. I said I didn't know. But I felt lighter somehow, like I'd been holding my breath for a month and finally let it out. The divorce process was painful in ways I didn't expect. It wasn't dramatic. Aaron kept his word and didn't fight me on anything. We divided our assets, we sold the house, we split the money. It was all very civil and very awful. The hardest part was telling people. My parents were devastated. They loved Aaron. They'd thought of him as a son for almost a decade. My mom cried when I told her. My dad got quiet and angry. He wanted to call Aaron and yell at him. I asked him not to. I said I just needed them to support me, not make it worse. Aaron's parents called me. His mom apologized. She said she'd raised him better than that. She said she was ashamed of him. She said she understood if I never wanted to speak to her again, but she hoped I knew how much she'd loved having me as a daughter-in-law. I cried on the phone with her. I told her I loved her too. I told her this wasn't her fault. She said she knew, but it didn't make it hurt any less. Our mutual friends didn't know what to do. Some of them took my side. Some of them tried to stay neutral. A few stopped talking to me altogether, and I never knew if it was because they believed Aaron's version of events or because divorce made them uncomfortable. I lost more than a husband. I lost a community. I lost the future I'd planned. I lost the version of myself who believed in happily ever after. The months after the divorce was finalized were the darkest of my life. I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. It was cheap and kind of depressing, but it was mine. I bought secondhand furniture. I hung pictures on the walls. I tried to make it feel like home, but I felt so alone. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and reach for Aaron before remembering he wasn't there. I'd come home from work and start to call out that I was home before realizing there was no one to hear me. I'd see something funny and pull out my phone to text him before catching myself. It was like mourning someone who was still alive. Everywhere I went, I saw couples holding hands. I saw happy families. I saw people living the life I thought I had, and it hurt. Every single time, it hurt. I started seeing a therapist. Her name was Dr. Carson. She was in her 50s, calm and kind, with a no-nonsense way of talking that I appreciated. She didn't let me wallow. She didn't let me blame myself. But she also didn't rush me through my grief. She told me that healing wasn't linear, that I'd have good days and bad days, that sometimes I'd think I was fine, and then something small would knock me back down. She said that was normal. She said I needed to be patient with myself, but patience was hard. I wanted to be over it. I wanted to wake up one day and not think about Aaron. I wanted to stop feeling like damaged goods. I wanted to stop wondering what was wrong with me that made him look somewhere else. Dr. Carson said none of this was about me. She said Aaron's choices were his own. She said I could have been the perfect wife, and he still might have cheated because the problem was inside him, not me. I didn't believe her at first. But slowly, over weeks and months, it started to sink in. I threw myself into work. I took on extra projects. I stayed late. I volunteered for assignments no one else wanted. My boss noticed and gave me a promotion. It wasn't much, just a title change and a small raise, but it felt like proof that I was still capable, that I was still valuable. I started working out. Not because I wanted to look better or make Aaron regret losing me. I did it because I needed to feel strong. I needed to prove to myself that my body could do hard things. I started running. At first, I could barely make it a mile, but I kept going. I ran 3 times a week, then 4, then 5. I signed up for a 5K, then a 10K. The physical pain of running gave me something to focus on besides the emotional pain. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during my marriage. People I'd drifted away from because Aaron didn't like them or because I'd been too busy playing wife. I reached out. I apologized for disappearing. Most of them were happy to hear from me. We met for coffee, for drinks, for long walks where I talked too much and cried too easily, and they listened anyway. I started saying no to things I didn't want to do. I stopped pretending to be okay when I wasn't. I stopped trying to make other people comfortable with my pain. If someone asked how I was and I was having a bad day, I said I was having a bad day. Some people didn't know how to respond. They changed the subject or made awkward jokes. But some people leaned in. They asked questions. They shared their own stories of heartbreak and survival. I learned who my real friends were. Morgan, obviously. She never wavered. But there were others, too. Coworkers who checked in on me. My cousin Emma, who called me every Sunday just to chat. My neighbor in the new apartment, Mrs. Patel, who brought me homemade samosas and told me stories about her own divorce 30 years ago. I wasn't alone. It only took me a long time to realize that, but I wasn't alone. About 4 months after the divorce, I was scrolling through social media and saw that Aaron had posted a photo. It was the first thing he'd posted in months. It was a picture of him hiking, standing on top of a mountain with his arms spread wide. The caption said something about new beginnings and finding himself. I stared at that photo for a long time. I felt a lot of things: anger, sadness, bitterness. But underneath all of that, I felt something else: relief. Because looking at that photo, I realized I didn't want him back, not even a little bit. I didn't miss him. I missed the idea of him. I missed the life I thought we had. But I didn't miss the reality. I didn't miss the lies. I didn't miss the constant travel and the feeling that I was always waiting for him to come home. I didn't miss wondering if he was telling the truth. I unfollowed him. Not out of anger, just because I didn't need to see his life anymore. His life wasn't my life, and that was okay. I started dating again about 6 months after the divorce. Not seriously, just casual coffee dates and dinners. I went out with a teacher named Ben, who talked too much about his ex-wife. I went out with a software developer named Kyle, who was sweet but boring. I went out with a bartender named Zoe, who made me laugh, but wasn't looking for anything serious. None of them turned into anything. But that was okay. I was learning how to be a person again, how to talk to someone new, how to be interested in someone else's story, how to imagine a future that didn't involve Aaron. One night, about 8 months after the divorce, I was lying in bed reading when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was Aaron's mom, Patricia. She apologized for calling so late. She said she'd been thinking about me. She asked how I was doing. We talked for over an hour. She told me Aaron had moved to Denver for a fresh start. She said he was still in therapy. She said he asked about me sometimes, but she never told him anything because she didn't think it was her place. I asked her why she was calling. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said she wanted me to know that what Aaron did wasn't my fault. She said she'd spent a lot of time thinking about it, trying to understand how she'd raised a son who could hurt someone he claimed to love. She said she didn't have answers, but she wanted me to know that I deserved better. She said I'd always deserved better. I cried. I thanked her. After we hung up, I sat in the dark and felt something shift inside me. It wasn't forgiveness. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive Aaron, but it was acceptance. I accepted that it happened. I accepted that I couldn't change it. I accepted that I was going to be okay anyway. I started writing. I'd always loved writing, but it stopped years ago because I was too busy, too focused on being a good wife, too focused on making Aaron happy. I started keeping a journal, just for me. I wrote about my marriage, about the betrayal, about the divorce, about the pain and the healing. I wrote pages and pages, ugly and raw and honest. And then I started writing other things, short stories, essays, nothing I planned to publish, just things I needed to get out. Writing became a way to process everything, a way to make sense of a senseless situation. I celebrated my first Christmas alone. It was hard. I'd always spent the holidays with Aaron and our families. This year, I woke up alone in my apartment. I made myself pancakes. I watched cheesy holiday movies. I called my parents and Morgan and Emma. It wasn't the Christmas I'd imagined, but it was mine. In January, a year after finding that plane ticket, I went back to the old house. Aaron had finished cleaning it out months ago. He'd sold it. But I drove by it one afternoon just to see. It looked different. The new owners had painted it. They'd put up new shutters. There were toys in the yard. A happy family lived there now. I sat in my car and looked at that house and thought about the person I'd been when I walked into it a year ago. That Rachel had been naive, trusting, optimistic. She'd believed in forever. I wasn't that person anymore. The person I was now was harder, more careful, but also stronger, braver, more honest. I didn't regret becoming this new version of myself, even though the path to get here had been excruciating. I drove away from that house and didn't look back. Now, 6 months later, I'm in a place I never thought I'd reach. I'm happy. Not every day, not perfectly, but genuinely, deeply happy in a way I never was in my marriage. I got another promotion at work. I'm leading a team now. I'm good at my job. I'm proud of what I do. I've done 3 half marathons, and I'm training for a full marathon this fall. I've written 50,000 words of a novel I may never publish, but that's not the point. The point is, I'm creating something. I'm building something that's entirely mine. I've started teaching a creative writing class at the community center on weekends. My students are mostly retirees and stay-at-home moms looking for a hobby. They're wonderful. They make me laugh. They remind me that life is full of people with stories, people who've survived hard things, people who keep going anyway. I still have bad days. Days when I wake up angry. Days when I see a couple my age and feel a sharp stab of jealousy. Days when I wonder if I'll ever trust someone enough to fall in love again. But those days are fewer now. And when they come, I know how to handle them. I call Morgan. I go for a run. I write. I remind myself that I survived the worst thing I thought could happen to me, and I'm still here. I don't know what my future looks like. I don't know if I'll get married again. I don't know if I'll have kids. I don't know if I'll stay in this city or move somewhere new. But for the first time in my life, I'm okay with not knowing. I'm okay with the uncertainty, because I know now that I can handle whatever comes. I'm stronger than I ever gave myself credit for. That plane ticket to London changed my life. It destroyed my marriage. It shattered my illusions. It forced me to see the truth about the person I'd built my entire adult life around. But it also set me free. Free from a relationship built on lies. Free from a version of myself that was afraid to be alone. Free to build a life that's true and real and entirely my own. I don't thank Aaron for what he did. I don't think betrayal is some kind of gift wrapped in pain. But I do thank myself for having the courage to walk away, for doing the hard work of healing, for choosing myself when it would have been easier to stay and pretend. If you're going through something like this right now, I want you to know it gets better. Not quickly, not easily, but it does get better. You're stronger than you think you are. You deserve honesty. You deserve respect. You deserve a love that doesn't come with lies hidden in shoeboxes in empty houses. And if you're the person who cheated, who lied, who broke someone's trust, I hope you're getting help. I hope you're doing the work to figure out why you made those choices. Not so you can get your partner back, but so you don't carry that damage into the next relationship. So you don't hurt someone else the way you hurt the person who loved you. As for me, I'm moving forward, one day at a time, one run at a time, one page at a time. I'm building a life I'm proud of, a life that's mine, a life where the only person I have to trust completely is myself. And that's enough. More than enough. It's all. If you like this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and which moment hit you the most.